Good morning, good morning, afternoon, and evening to our valued audience and speakers. Welcome to the highly anticipated YALDA and ICOYACA Africa Continental Free Trade Area Youth Advisory Council webinar, Consolidating Africa Continental Free Trade Area Implementation and Accelerating Inclusive Job Creation through Regional Integration, Free Movement, and African Financial Institute. My name is Joseph Mumba. I'm the former Mulungushi University Student Union President and YALDA digital activist. I'll be co-moderating the session with Ega Akoni, Administration and Programs Manager, ICOYACA, also known as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Youth Advisory Council. It's a pleasure to moderate today's session. Just the house rules, even as we start. When you enter the webinar, make sure you remain on mute throughout the webinar. Ensure your camera is off. We need to respect everyone's data consumption. Type your name, type your questions. Yeah, type your questions and comments in the chat box only. Put your name and country. Those whose questions or comments are selected will be asked to unmute and speak. If you are unmuted, kindly just repeat the same typed question in the chat box and then repeat the question and comment text. So, hello, can I have Ego Connie?
Thank you, Joseph, for introducing me. Good evening, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Egan Koni. I am the Administration and Programs Manager from ICOYACA based in Botswana. And I am excited for moderating this session with you, Joseph, tonight. Thank you.
Just to do the introduction of the webinar. The global economy is still reeling from inequality, disrupt supply chains, and shift in labor's market. Amid this uncertainty, the promise of regional integration in Africa stands as a powerful counter-narrative. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the world's largest free trade area by membership, represents a market of 1.4 billion people and an estimated combination GDP of 3.4 trillion US dollars, according to the report of UNECA. It is projected that if effectively implemented, intra-African trade could rise from 15% to 36%, unlocking up to 18 million new jobs by 2035, especially in labor-intensive sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, logistics, and the digital economy. Young people also shaping policy. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area Youth Advisory Council, created in 2023, ensures that youth voices influence trade governance in countries like Zambia, Botswana, South Africa. YALDA's cross-border entrepreneurs have trained youth to navigate trade regimes, develop scalable businesses, and collaborative across borders. Yet more investment is needed in connectivity, vocational training, and access to finance, particularly through institutions like the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, and the upcoming African Monetary Bank. YALDA and ICOYACA are champions of youth-led integration through capacity building, policy engagement, and innovation-focused programs. We equip Africa's youth with the tools to make the Africa Continental Free Trade Area work for their communities. We believe integration must be inclusive. It must promote mobility, remove structural barriers, and enhance the full potential on Africa's youngest people. This collaboration between YALDA and ICOYACA continues our mission of equipping Africa's youth with information on Africa Continental Free Trade Area, trade and regional integration. Allow me also to acknowledge Were Aran from Kenya, Pesi Kafilwe Gobuswe from Botswana, and Abinaida Piseba from Zambia as the authors of this webinar's concept plan. So like I earlier said, to begin this exciting webinar, I ask all of you in the audience the chat your name and country, even as Egan Koni, speaker.
Thank you everyone once again for joining us today. I will be introducing our speakers for this lovely webinar. I will start with Rodrigo, Gounde, MD, Primary Healthcare Officer at ICRC from Togo, consultant in monitoring and evaluation of health projects and programs in Togo. Secondly, we have Nariman Manubi, consultant in etiquette and protocol, Vice President of the Democratic Youth Party in Tunisia. We also have Ramazani Burume Jordan, Regional Planning and Environmental Protection Activist in DRC. We also have Elodora Matubanzila, Communications Expert on One Trade Africa at ITC in Ghana. We also have Vincent Baidu, 2024 Learners Representative Council, President of Design and Technology Institute in Ghana. We have Ala Arafat, Grants and Partnership Specialist in Jordan and Tunisia. We have Trust Muhau Mwendabai, Director of Emerging Technologies, AfCFTA Young Entrepreneurs Federation in Zambia. Lastly, we have Nosi Potlope, Regional Trade Analyst, Regional Service Center for Africa, RSCA, United Nations Development Program in South Africa. Thank you so much and welcome once again. I will begin with asking the general question, which is briefly explain what are the key success factors for fully operationalizing an AfCFTA by 2030, and how can regional integration directly tackle youth unemployment across Africa? I will first start with Rodrigo Kowinde. You can go. Rodrigo, you can go ahead and answer the question. Rodrigo, we cannot. I will move on to Nariman Manubi. You can go ahead and answer the question. Thank you. Nariman Manubi, you can go ahead and answer the question. Hi, Nariman. We can't hear you this side.
Okay, you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yes, I
Nice.
can hear you. Perfect.
Okay. Hello, I'm Nariman Mounoubi from Tunisia. I am a French teacher, trainer, consultant in etiquette and protocol. and I'm deeply engaged in African and international affairs, especially in issues related to leadership, diplomacy, and sustainable development.
Yes,
So,
thank you. Can you please answer the following question, our general question? Briefly explain what the key success factors for fully operationalizing the AfCFTA by 2030, and how can regional integration directly tackle youth unemployment across Africa?
to truly align national strategies with the African continental free trade area goals, countries must go beyond political statements and take concrete, measurable action. There are 5 case steps. First, harmonize trade and customs policies. Government must revise national laws to remove no traffic barriers, simplify customs procedures, and ensure compatibility with the AfCFTA frameworks. 2, invest in trade-related infrastructure, roads, ports, digital platforms, and logistics must be modernized to facilitate the movement of goods and services, especially for young entrepreneurs. Third, strengthen vocational training and entrepreneurship. Young people need education and support of these opportunities in key sectors such as agriculture, industry, services, and e-commerce. 4, create accessible financing mechanism in partnerships with institutions like Afreximbank or national development banks. Government should provide credit, guarantees, or provide support local business. 5, promote national dialogue and youth inclusion. Governments must involve youth, women, and economic actors in developing trade strategies, not only beneficiaries, but as co-creators. Thank you. So,
Help us facilitate this trade, and also to offer financing or offer credit. I really concur. Next, Rodrigo, you can go ahead. Okay, I'll get back to Rodrigo. Ramazani Burume Jordan, you can go ahead and answer our general question.
Hello.
Hello.
Je m'excuse, je vais intervenir en français parce que je ne suis pas éloquent en anglais. Je ne sais pas si c'est permis.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Yes. Je voulais savoir, chaque intervenant doit intervenir jusqu'à combien de minutes. Comme ça doit nous aider à beaucoup plus synthétiser ce que nous avons.
Ramazani, I can't hear you quite clearly.
Allô?
Yes, I can hear you clearly now.
Je disais ceci, je voulais savoir chaque intervenant doit intervenir durant combien de minutes pour que nous puissions pas terminer beaucoup plus tard. Et je vois que nous sommes nombreux.
Ramazan, you can please proceed in French. There's no problem. You can just proceed and respond to the question.
Yes. Je disais ceci. Vous m'entendez? Je voulais savoir, chaque intervenant doit intervenir durant combien de minutes. parce que je vois que nous sommes nombreux et il n'y a pas assez de temps.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan, for your answer. My apologies, I don't speak French, but thank you so much for your answer. Moving on, Elodora, can you please go ahead and answer our general question?
Okay, thank you very much. So my name, I don't know if you can see me yet. Are you able to see me?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay, great. So good evening, everyone. So my name is Elidora Matubanzila, and I am representing the International Trade Center. So you said it was in Ghana, but it is not in Ghana. It is based in Geneva. So ITC is a joint agency of the World Trade Organization and the United Nations. So to respond to the question, I would just narrow in into a few points for lack of time. So for the first key success factor, so as we know, the AfCFTA is now in the implementation phase. So one of the key factors will be domesticating the implementation capacity. So the national implementation committees of the AfCFTA will be central to its implementation. Because as we know, Secretariat cannot do the work on their own. We have to make sure that it's integrated into national agendas. And also institutions that are working alongside the ministries of trade, such as customs, for example, and standard bodies, would be very detrimental to the implementation of the AfCFTA. And then the next success factor would be private sector readiness. So what we do at ITC is we support SMEs to make sure that we prepare them for international trade, because we have carried out a few surveys and they showed that 1 out of 2 African SMEs were not aware of the AfCFTA. So we realized that we had to build their capacity in that sense. And so we have a few programs as the One Trade Africa, team, such as a program called How to Export with AfCFTA. So we have trained so far over 12,000 people on the e-learning platform. It is in partnership with Afreximbank and ITFC. We also have a glossary for private sector that we had published in 2022. There was also an app for that. So it's basically a breakdown for the private sector on everything you're supposed to know as an entrepreneur to be able to harness the AfCFTA. The third point would be trade infrastructure and partnerships. So once again, the Secretariat's mandate is quite huge, so they cannot do this alone. They definitely have to work with partners. I heard somebody mention Afreximbank earlier, so that is one of the critical partners. We have finance partners, development partners, implementation partners such as ITC, for example, and then working with key instruments and key initiatives, digital platforms, for example. So we have, it could be things like payment systems like the PAPS platform. It could also be the e-tariff book, which is a key instrument also for the AfCFTA. And then the fourth success factor that I would be highlighting is on data and accountability. So it is very important also that we realize the importance of data in the process of implementation, because as we know, majority of our SMEs on the continent are making up of the informal sector, right? So unfortunately, we don't have the stats to back them up. We don't always have that. So it will be very important that we have data backing up the implementation so we can actually follow through and see how effective it's been. For example, case in point could be, gathering how many rules of origin certificates have been issued, for example. Those could be things that could be done. And then in terms of the regional integration, tackling youth unemployment. So there is something very critical when it comes to regional integration and youth employment. So we have done a study as a policy brief with IOM, the AUC, and the AfCF Secretariat, and we realized with the study that there is a nexus between youth mobility, migration, and trade. Right. What it's going to help with is unlocking market access, because as we know, there's a potential of 1.4 billion market for young entrepreneurs. So that would help them have access to scaling their businesses when they are able to, to reach regional integration. There's also skills and value chains. So if we're able to build our young people towards industries that are within the value chains that are going to be big wins for the continent, it would also help create more jobs. The AfCFTA is also going to help as, young people have more sophisticated, industries, and notably the digital service where young people are thriving in that space, so it's going to help that as well. And then youth networks such as YALDA, ICOYACA as well, such as what you're doing right now. So yeah, I think basically just to finalize, it just has to be inclusive and ensure that young people have their voices in the room and they don't feel like an afterthought. They have to be proactive in ensuring that they are partly and fully shaping the regional integration process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eldora. Yes, for your answer. And I agree. I have actually taken part in one of the courses, How to Export by ITC. And yeah, I learned quite a lot. And right now I am doing payments. And just last week I finished e-commerce. So I can testify that the courses do help in private sector readiness, and that also, yes, we need to involve more young people to participate. And if CFTA can't do it alone, we need government, private sector in different countries to take part in this. So thank you so much, Eldora, for your answer. I will go back to Rodrigo. You can go ahead and answer our general question. You can go ahead, Rodrigo. I think there's a problem with the network on his side. I will hand over to Alan for the next part.
Okay. Thank you, Ega. Thank you so much for that. We are going to move to our next speaker, with Vincent Baidu, 2024 Learners Representative Council President of Design and Technology Institute, based in Ghana. So our question, we are asking, what are the key success factors for fully operationalizing the AfCFTA by 2030? And how can regional integration directly tackle youth unemployment across Africa? Please welcome Vincent Baidu. Vincent Baidu, if you can hear me clearly.
Yes, please.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Okay, hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can go ahead, Vincent.
Yes, please. So, Baidu Vincent, current LRC president of Design and Technology Institute, Ghana, which is a Okay, so I'm Baidu Vincent, the current Learners Representative Council president of Design and Technology Institute. So Design and Technology Institute is actually a production school, which is mainly partnered with MasterCard Foundation. Yeah, so it's fully deals with hands-on training and also equipping learners with the best skills for industry. Yeah. So the first question, success factors. So some of the success factors that we have to discuss about or talk about in order to operationalize the African Continental Free Trade Area by 2030 So some of the key factors to consider is accelerating negotiations on outstanding issues which have led to a lack of proper implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area agreement details. So I think we need to make sure that the African Continental Free Trade Area agreement works. We cannot have a promising continent and our intra-trade is less than 16%, which is then said by Dangote. So I think some of the young leaders from diverse backgrounds are emerging as essential change makers. They are really doing massive work, and I think we have to revisit some of the negotiation issues which are outstanding. It has to be solved with, and also the second factor that I will emphasize on is implementing policy reforms. So they have to be processes to revise and improve existing policies or creating new policies to address social issues, enhance governance, and to promote social justice and equality among individuals. So if we revise on certain policies, it will really help to ensure that countries fully enforce the African Continental Free Trade Area protocols. And so there was a survey which was conducted by the Global Shapers Impacts from 1st June to 31st July 2024, which draws on unique insights from 3,000 sorry, sir. So it was a survey was deployed which talked about or gave a data of 3,989 young leaders and experts from 459 diverse locations, including capital cities, rural areas, remote island and refugee camps. So I think we revisiting policies and also reshaping it by the involvement of African youth, we will build a better Africa and we will build a better continent for those coming to really get to enjoy the benefit of what we've saved for. So to the next question, which is how can regional integration directly tackle youth unemployment across Africa? I think I'll emphasize on creation of opportunities for young people through initiatives. So I think opportunities like the youth getting access to funding opportunities in order to support their businesses, and also getting a startup capital to set up their own businesses, and also fostering skills development. There have to be a room for opportunity in order for the youth to get the real skills needed for the industry. Like if you come to Ghana, we have TVET. So TVET mainly emphasize on hands-on training, industrial-based experiences. So they equip learners with industry experiences, which will help you to get to yourself in order to fit in industries, and also to start working in a form of you being a professional. Yeah. So I think that's what I'll talk about. There have to be a creation of opportunities for young people in Africa to get the opportunity to excel and also to express their capabilities and potentials. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vincent Baidu. Of course, Vincent Baidu has talked about implementing policies to address social issues. He has also talked about creating opportunities through initiatives and also skills development. Thank you so much, Vincent, for that insightful points. Our next speaker is Ala Arafat, Grants and Partnerships Specialist from Jordan and Tunisia. Our question today, we are asking, what are the key success factors for fully operationalizing the AfCFTA by 2030? And how can regional integration directly tackle youth unemployment across Africa? Welcome, Ala Arafat.
Thank you.
Please, you can
me?
unmute so that. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So everybody said a lot of very interesting points, so I will try not to repeat. I want to acknowledge that shifts and harmonization of policies, infrastructure development, creation of opportunities are all really important key factors for us to explore, basically. But as someone who feels very passionate about localization and working with youth, I would say the most important three key factors to focus on would be coming from the youth themselves. So basically, I would say that one really important thing is to focus on inclusive participation, where we're not just we're not just changing policies or practices, but we're actually creating networks and platforms for women, youth, people with disabilities, people who are working in the informal market, who, as a lot of my colleagues have said, really form more than half of the market in Africa. So giving these people platforms and ways to engage in meaningful networks would definitely be an important aspect. Another thing is that in order to actually create cross-border mobility, we would need to have a standardized practice for either reducing the dependency on foreign currency, the way the Africa, apologies if I'm spelling this incorrectly, but the way the Afreximbank is doing at the moment, where we're basically allowing the transfer of funds through local currencies and reducing the difficulties that we basically face with international transfers, the money loss when it comes to using hard currencies such as USDs and dollars. And I think another really important factor in ensuring that integration does happen through these practices is harmonizing accreditation cross-border. So having a standardized methodology for acknowledging certification, acknowledging reference checks, and experience letters, et cetera, across different African countries in order to really create an atmosphere of integration, create an atmosphere of inclusivity, et cetera. Finally, as many of my colleagues have said, I think a really important factor would definitely be having accountability, whether it's on a political level or an agency or an organization level. I think that would be something that we strive for. And finally, I just want to say that I truly hope that this free trade agreement and the new tools that are being created to enable this cross-border integration and the creation of employment opportunity truly turns into a tool for prosperity and growth instead of becoming more of an elite wealth growth tool like we've seen in other places in the world. And I think just one last thing to really focus on here would be that this does require the true buy-in and belief of African youth into this new approach and to these new policies and the use of these tools. And that happens by setting priorities straight, really like just embedding our own principles and standards instead of adopting global standards as they are, thinking about how contextualizing global standards into a way that really works for the local communities and the marginalized communities that we will be working with and through. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Arafat, for those significant points. Some of the points she has put across include focusing on inclusive participation, coming up with standardization practice so that cross-border mobility is enhanced. And also, she has talked about accountability. Those are very good points there. I think so many people here have gotten something. Next, we are going to our next speaker, who is Trust Muhau Mwendabai, the Director of Emerging Technologies, AfCFTA Young Entrepreneurs Federation from Zambia. Our question today, we are asking, what are the key success factors for fully operationalizing the AfCFTA by 2030? And how can regional integration directly tackle youth unemployment across Africa? Welcome, Trust.
All right, thank you very much. I hope I'm audible. Okay.
Yes, you're clear enough.
All right, so it is a great opportunity for me to be part of this, and I would be glad to be able to address some of the things that can be implemented in order to make sure that digital innovation and entrepreneurship is boosted in intra-African trade. And one of the things that I would want to start with is the digital trade platforms. In as much I've already in the right place, in the right track, we have already started the way, but I believe digital trade platforms need to have more of the digital trade platforms. So what we mean is that platforms that can try to allow entrepreneurs or businesses to be able to trade easily across borders, whereby like from one country is able to trade with another person in another country seamlessly and in real time, whereby it is going to make it easier for businesses to be able to integrate such kind of systems. So those are one of the things that is going to help and make it easier for innovation or entrepreneurship to be boosted, because technology, in as much as we talk of this, technology is one of the key key sponsors for this, because without technology, it is going to be very challenging for us to have this intra-African trade. And then once we have such platforms that enable people or that enable businesses to be able to trade seamlessly, it is going to be very, very useful. And then the second point that I would want to raise is also having fintech and cross-border payments. So we may find that it may be sometimes very challenging to have all those different conversion factors, whereby maybe I'm in Zambia here and I want to trade with another country there. I will need to have a lot of conversion factors for me to be able to do that. But once we have whereby payment systems, whereby it is seamlessly, I'm able to buy something without having all those conversion factors, or like especially not just having those conversion factors, but with the charges that usually come across for you to be able to have that. Those are some of the things that might be able to limit. But now, once we have those payments whereby it already converts into your currency, do not need to have those extra charges that are required for you to have all those extra charges when you are trying to convert from one currency to the others. So fintech and cross-border payment systems are something that are very useful in trying to make sure that we boost the intra-African trade. And then the third point that I'd also want to raise is having youth-led startups so that they can scale regionally and also at the continental level. So we find that youth are the ones who are trying to help in spearheading some of these. Youth are the ones who can try to boost in these things. So we need to have more of youth startups and trying to create an enabling environment that will make these youths to be able to be supported in all the different areas that they require. Because youth, they may usually have many ideas, but it is very difficult for them to be able to actualize those ideas. So if you try to create the enabling environment to make sure that youth-led startups can try to scale regionally and what is going to be helped to them, when you try to provide them with the right technology, with the right tools to use for them to be able to scale their businesses. They may have businesses, they may have enterprises that are just locally, but they need those support or the enabling environment to enable them to scale them up to inter-African trading, meaning that some of the things that are required is to provide them with the necessary tools and equipment for them to be able to scale up. The other thing and the last point that I'd want to state also is about having digital skills development. And maybe I can also try to combine it partly to what I said, like in one of the things that creates the enabling environment is to have like ways, or like you can talk of things that try to help them to have to support them, in short, try to create things that try to support youth, try to create policies that help or enable the youth to be able to be part of this key decision making, that help them to have all these different access to different resources that enable them to trade even at an African level. So we need to have things like boot camps for skill development, coding hubs. We need to have regional centers of excellence to equip young people with the skills and innovate and also trade digitally. So all those things, when put together, they are going to support the youth. They are going to make it easier for people with the right mindset, people with the right ideas to be able to scale up, to be able to sell even across borders. And once these are put in place, and also having things like hubs, innovation hubs, where youth are able to come together and try to bring in their different innovations, supported, sponsored, it is going to be easier and promote this intra-African trade. I think with those few remarks, I'll end there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Trust, for those points. Trust has talked about digital platforms, having standardized cross-border payments, encouraging youth-led startups. Thank you so much. I would like to call Joseph. Joseph, I don't know whether Joseph can hear me. Joseph, can you hear me?
Yes, I can get you.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Sure. Maybe I would like also to call Ms. Nozpa to answer the general question, which highlights briefly what's the key success factor for fully operationalizing the Africa Continental Free Trade Area by 2030, and how can regional integration directly tackle youth unemployment across Africa?
Okay, thank you very much. Like I have been introduced, my name is Nozi Poshope from UNDP, the Regional Service Center for Africa. The challenge about speaking last is that you actually fall into the trap of repeating what the previous speakers have already spoken about, which I think are very important factors. However, I think mine are three main points that I think are important to fully operationalize AfCFTA by 2030. And the first one being strong political will and coordination. The second being private sector-led implementation. And last but not least, I think inclusive digital and physical infrastructure will be important for us to realize the success of the AfCFTA. I think countries need to move beyond rectification and now real domestication, this meaning budget allocations to actually making this trade agreement work, trade facilitation, and the enabling laws that are needed on the ground to create the enabling environment, be it for our startups, our MSMEs to actually thrive, right? And then on youth employment, I think what is really important is that regional integration actually creates scale, be it in agriculture, be it in the services sector, or in manufacturing. It enables startups and businesses to grow beyond the fragmented local markets and identify their niches in a totally different market that they wouldn't have realized if it weren't open to them. So by reducing trade barriers and unlocking regional demand, I think we catalyze job creation in value-added sectors to be able to absorb Africa's youth bulge. And I also think what we don't realize is that by the AfCFTA reducing tariffs and simplifying procedures and eventually harmonizing standards, right? By lowering all these barriers that we are currently facing, it helps for the youth to also actually expand their markets. I think it's especially impactful for the youth who often operate in informal sectors or in early stage ventures, right? Regional demand will drive investment in labor-intensive industries eventually, where youth can both be creators and consumers of those jobs. I also think an important factor is that the youth need to not be seen as only beneficiaries, but co-architects into the integration and operationalization rather of the AfCFTA. I think over and above empowering them with the skills, they need to also inform most of the groundwork that will happen to transform Africa from the ground up. This without going further ado, also highlights that UNDP fully supports the youth and is behind him through initiatives that we do, be it with YALDA, the AfCFTA Secretariat, the initiatives that are done across the continent by Timbuktu for our startups. You know, we continue to try build the gap between policy work and implementation and advocate, most importantly, for inclusive policy making, institutional frameworks, and strengthening regional value chains through one of our programs that we call Regional Supply Development Program, which is specialized in identifying markets for suppliers within the national markets and scaling them up to the regional markets. So I think to be fully integrated, we need the youth to be at the forefront as informants, and that will then make a success for them and fully operationalize AfCFTA for the youth by the youth by 2030. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you so much for that insight. And our distinguished guests, we're just getting deeper into now the webinar. We keep learning from the great speakers that have spoken so far. So going back again now to Mr. Ramanzin Jordan, what does African integration mean to you personally as a young leader, African leader?
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Jordan.
Je vais intervenir en français. Bonsoir tout le monde. J'espère que vous vous portez très bien. Je suis Ramazani Bouroum Jorda. Je vis en République démocratique du Congo. Je suis licencié en planification régionale. En plus de mon parcours académique, je suis engagé activement dans la protection de l'environnement en tant qu'activiste et je suis bénévole auprès de deux organisations, Our Health Organization et Worldwide. C'est donc avec un grand plaisir que je participe à ce webinaire. Mesdames et messieurs, chers participants, durant mon intervention, je vais répondre à la question de savoir pourquoi l'intégration des jeunes est essentielle pour transformer l'avenir de l'intégration africaine. L'Afrique est un continent en pleine transformation où les jeunes constituent la majorité de la population. Leur rôle dépasse largement celui des simples bénéficiaires des politiques. Ils sont des acteurs moteurs du changement pour l'intégration africaine. Pour que l'intégration africaine devienne une réalité concrète et durable, il est impératif que les jeunes soient au cœur du processus. Leur engagement et leur vision sont des leviers essentiels pour bâtir un avenir commun prospère. Pourquoi la participation des jeunes est essentielle pour l'intégration africaine? Plus de 60% de la population africaine a moins de 25 ans. Cela signifie que les jeunes sont majoritaires et représentent une force humaine et sociale incontournable. Les politiques d'intégration continentale ne peuvent réussir si elles ne prennent pas en compte leurs besoins, leurs aspirations et leurs droits. Les jeunes africains sont à l'avant-garde de l'innovation technologique, du numérique et de nouveaux modèles économiques. Ils sont les moteurs de la transformation économique capables de créer des entreprises, d'inventer des solutions et de renforcer la compétitivité de l'Afrique sur la scène mondiale. L'intégration des jeunes dans les processus de décision, de gouvernance et d'action socio-économique est une condition clé pour la lutte contre le chômage, la marginalisation et l'instabilité politique qui peuvent freiner le développement. Avec des initiatives comme la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, la ZELTA en sigle, la jeunesse peut tirer parti d'un marché unique africain, libre de barrières et riche en opportunités. Cela leur ouvre l'accès à la libre circulation des biens, des services, des capitaux et des personnes. Et la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine est une initiative phare de l'Union africaine pensée pour impulser une nouvelle dynamique d'intégration économique. Son ambition, construire un marché unique africain, le plus grand au monde en nombre de pays membres, facilitant ainsi la libre circulation de marchandises et de services avec une réduction progressive des douanes sur 90% des produits échangés, l'augmentation des investissements transfrontaliers et la création de chaînes de valeur de l'échelle continentale. L'amélioration de l'employabilité des jeunes avec de nombreuses opportunités à saisir dans les secteurs modernes et traditionnels, la valorisation de l'entrepreneuriat des jeunes via une meilleure intégration des économies nationales au sein du marché plus vaste. La réussite de la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine dépend majoritairement de la mobilisation des jeunes entrepreneurs, des innovateurs et des professionnels qui s'engagent à construire une Afrique économiquement intègre et compétitive. L'agenda 2063 est une feuille de route à long terme de l'Union africaine pour le développement inclusif, durable et centré sur les Africains. Il propose cette aspiration qui doivent guider toutes les actions d'intégration continentale, notamment en valorisant le rôle de la jeunesse. Une Afrique prospère fondée sur la croissance inclusive et le développement durable, une Afrique intègre politiquement unie, fondée sur le panafricanisme et la solidarité entre les Africains, une Afrique de la bonne gouvernance, de la démocratie, des droits de l'homme, de la justice et de l'état de droit, une Afrique pacifique et sûre, une Afrique avec une forte identité culturelle et un patrimoine commun et des valeurs partagées. Et une Afrique où le développement est centré sur les personnes, s'appuyant sur les potentiels des femmes et des jeunes. Une Afrique forte, un acteur inclusif sur la scène mondiale. Et en conclusion, je souhaite insister sur ces points fondamentaux. La jeunesse africaine est le clé de voûte de l'intégration continentale et du développement durable en Afrique. Pour transformer transformer l'Afrique et réussir des initiatives telles que la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine, il faut engager massivement des jeunes, leur offrir des opportunités réelles, et leur conférer des moyens d'agir. Leur créativité, leur engagement civique et leur esprit d'entreprise sont indispensables pour construire une Afrique que nous voulons. Un continent prospère, uni et juste. Voilà un peu, merci. Je vous remercie. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Jordan. To our audience, kindly be typing your questions in the chat box, and there will be a time when you'll be permitted to ask the speakers so that they can respond. Going forth, let me allow Ms. Alalafat to answer this following question, and it reads, how do African financial institutions contribute to inclusive economic transformation? Ms. Alalafat?
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So to answer this question, I'm actually going to rely on the small experience that I've had working with the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, which is under Dr. Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel laureate. Basically, I believe that the role of the African financial institutions in inclusive economic transformation is conceptually and practically aligned with what the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh did. Basically, these financial institutions, when used right, when enabled to work appropriately, become essential enablers of inclusive economic transformation wherever they're applied. As I said, institutions like the African Export and Import Bank and potentially the upcoming African Monetary Fund both play critical roles in enhancing access to finance, especially for youth, MSMEs, cross-border entrepreneurs, people who are typically left on the informal side of the market, people who are not typically engaged in formal economies as we perceive them in a standardized way, basically. The way I think financial institutions would create inclusive economies is by ensuring that their support is extended to underrepresented groups and allowing these groups to actually participate in regional trade and add value to production, supply chains, et cetera, or value chains. Again, this can be done through several mechanisms. One is that these institutions can actually present an innovative financial infrastructure, which can help in actual development to the infrastructure across Africa, but also it can simplify cross-border transactions in the way that the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System currently does, because it allows transfers and trade basically in local currencies, which means that these trades, these value chains, these financial transactions in principle become more accessible and affordable for, again, businesses that are underrepresented in the market, businesses that are led by women, youth, marginalized groups, et cetera. The way this reduces reliance on external currencies, external transfer methods, can really integrate these informal markets into the formal economy across Africa. Again, this is something that will require a lot of effort, a lot of mindset shifts, if I may say. But if we invest in this financial inclusion, in the infrastructure development, in facilitating trade, reduction of reliance on external currencies, then these African financial institutions can really not just support micro businesses, but it can actually support the economy stability, and they can form an actually more equitable, just, connected, and opportunity-rich Africa. Before I hand over, I just want to say that, again, from previous experience working in Bangladesh, although I understand it's a very different context, but just because the spirit of Grameen's bank's work and the work that Dr. Muhammad Yunus has done really paved the pathway to remove financial exclusion and enable economically marginalized individuals to participate in the economy, which in a sense meant that trade access became more democratic. It meant that we were seeing so many more youth entrepreneurs, informal businesses that are being integrated, and just broader regional market access for individuals that initially wouldn't have had such a wide access, especially women, people living with poverty, people with disabilities, etc., etc. In short, or as a conclusion, I genuinely see that through removing structural financial barriers, the African financial institutions can enable access to finance, regional markets, and support Africa's youth, small businesses, to really drive the bottom-up transformation with the right mindset, with the right contextualization of global standards, not by simply adopting, I would have to say, Western values or global values, but by looking internally to what local opportunities really are and how can they become available on a regional and a global level. Thank you. Hopefully you found that helpful.
Thank you so much for that presentation and the experience you've just shared. Definitely, we need financial institutions to move financial structures to support SMEs as well as entrepreneurship, those people that definitely have a shift of mind. We have another speaker coming up now, and allow me to call Trust Mhau Wendama to answer the following question, as you keep us educative in this webinar. Trust Mhau, how can digital innovation and entrepreneurship help boost intra-African trade? Somehow, that's the question. How can digital innovation and entrepreneurship help boost intra-African trade?
All right. Thank you very much for that question. Okay. I would try to add on to what I already said in my previous question. Technology is something that is almost in every department this time around. It's something that helps us to be able to connect. Even like the meeting that we're having right now, it is because of technology. And without anything, it would be very difficult. Without technology, it would be very difficult for us to be able to access or to have access to other things that exist or even just the information that exists in other places. So it is a very critical issue, something that is very important for us to be able to implement even in intra-African trade. So some key things that I can identify, that I can say out, that helps, that how technology can boost intra-African trade. One, it can boost or help in intra-African trade if it is implemented in almost every sector that we're using. So emerging technologies, for example, like when you try to use emerging technologies, for example, when you talk of like artificial intelligence, when you talk of things like blockchain, when you talk of Internet of Things, when most of these technologies are implemented, because as we know that things are advancing and we keep on moving on from one area to the other. So technology is going to help us. It becomes like an enabler for all these things that we have, because it becomes like the entire continent becomes connected, and it helps to be able to streamline the processes that are needed for us to be able to have this trade from one place to the other. As I stated earlier on, that when we have like digital platforms that try to help us to streamline these intra-African trade. So those are some of the things that can try to help us in facilitating this. Technology, in short, it tries to help in trying to remove the barriers that are put in place or that are there, that's try to help, that's try to limit us from having inter-African trade. So technology is something that is going to be very useful in that case. So the second thing that I can try to state, that technology can help in trying to make the processes faster. When we have tools that help us to make our work faster. So the first one, I said that it creates an enabling environment, more like a booster there to be able to achieve that. And then the second thing I'm saying that it makes the work to be easier and faster. So when there are a lot of tools that we can try to use or that can try to work on or develop that can help us to be able to make our work faster. Instead of you to be able, for example, to travel from one place to the other, for you to be able to achieve your goals, for you to be able to go and sell. We can have things, for example, like e-commerce. When you talk of e-commerce, you are able to sell your things or your products online. You are able to have things whereby people are buying from different parts of Africa, but you are located in one area. You are able to connect with other entrepreneurs from afar because of technology. So it helps us to be able to enable that environment that helps us to be able to trade with other countries, with other people from different parts of Africa, and it also makes our work to be faster. Instead of you physically traveling from one place to the other, it is going to make your work faster by trying to use tools that will make your work faster instead of you trying to do certain things manually. So technology plays a crucial role in that area and trying to make our work faster. And then thirdly, also, technology tries to, apart from it making faster, it makes our work, it does the work even at in short, it is more efficient or more effective than manual labor, than trying to use more human resource. So there are certain things, there are certain tools or techniques in technology that it can try to be implied, that can try to help us to be able to, in the work that could have been done by a lot of people, it can be done by one person. There, in this time around, there also this era of AI, artificial intelligence, we also have tools like what we call now like AI agents, whereby they are able to combine different workflows to be able to achieve certain things, not just at a faster rate, but even at a more accurate and predictive analysis tools that can help us to do work more than a human being could have done. So it makes our work to be faster and even more effective and efficient. So those are some of the different things in which technology can help us to work. So one, it helps us to enable us to do certain things, to be able to trade with other countries, even within the localities of where you are able to trade with other nations, you're able to trade with other people from different parts of Africa. So it is able to connect us. Secondly, it's going to make our work faster when you use the right tools, depending on the type of businesses that we have, that we do. It is going to make our work to be very faster. And then three, it is going to make our work to be very effective, whereby the quality of delivery is going to be more effective because we are doing something that is less prone to errors. Unlike human beings, we are more prone to errors, especially on certain things that is too large, that requires a lot of computations. It might be very easier when you try to implement technology to enhance the way we work, to enhance the workflow. So it is going to make it very easier for us to be able to carry out certain things that might take long for us to implement physically. So those are some of the key things that I can identify, that how technology can try to help or to boost the intra-African trade. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Trent, for that presentation. Definitely, digital innovation and entrepreneurship can boost our intra-African trade by improving our workspaces, by improving quality, by making our work effective and efficient. Definitely, we keep learning. And also to the audience, let's keep our speakers engaging by typing your questions in the chat box. Let me now proceed to the next speaker, who's no other than Ms. Nosba Lofi. So this question to you is, how can youth-led cross-border initiatives be scaled to increase regional impact? Ms. Nozipa Lofe, how can youth-led cross-border initiatives be scaled to increase regional impact? Over to you.
Sure, thank you very much. My name is Nozi Poshope. But you tried your best. So just to answer your question, it's okay. Just to answer your question, I think scaling youth-led initiatives, cross-border initiatives, requires deliberate system-based approach, right? That places the youth at the center of Africa's integration. So I think at UNDP, in the work that we do with the youth, we always try to keep this in mind, that the youth are central to driving the regional trade and value addition. I think firstly, what we need to do is start scaling scaling starts, I think, with integration into formal regional value chains. And earlier on, I spoke to what we call the Regional Supply Development Program, which focuses on that, identifying a buyer. And from these youth enterprises, there are already existing suppliers. So I think also a focused approach in matchmaking and identifying a market for them and ensuring that they're able to produce at their highest potential to be able to trade across the borders, right? I think these connections also allow for the youth and businesses to move beyond their local markets and anchor themselves in the continent-wide supply chains. Secondly, I think trade facilitation tools are very important. My colleague over here spoke about the PAPS, the Pan-African Payment System, which helps us facilitate payment, settling it in local currency. And we know payments have been an issue for us for quite a long time, We also have initiatives that are focused on making sure that this cross-border initiatives also remain inclusive. We have platforms like, or initiatives rather, like her AfCFTA, which focus on women and youth and ensuring that they play a critical role, a catalytic role in demystifying, the trade processes and providing on-hand support for youth and women and trying to navigate and leverage on the youth and women protocol that is set out for them. And then thirdly, we need to invest in infrastructure and soft infrastructure. That is, we often overlook soft infrastructure because when we think infrastructure, we think roads and so forth and buildings. However, I think harmonizing trade policies and simplifying the border procedures and improving access to finance, particularly through partners like Afreximbank and local development partners, becomes very essential, be it if we find and partner with local banks who will then be able to have tailored products that are created for women. We have such an example in Botswana through our Regional Supply Development Program, where there are preferential rates created around making sure that these people who have undergone a program that enables them to be able to become sufficient suppliers to the buyer that is identified, meaning they're able to meet the quality, they're able to produce the quantities that are said to be produced by them, that are demanded by the large enterprise who we refer to as the supplier. You know, how do we then find a way that they're able to scale up their businesses? And also identifying other things within your business ecosystem that might not necessarily be financial hurdles that will then enable you to scale up. So I think over and above that, the youth do need tailored capacity building, mentorships, and platforms that amplify their voices, you know, policy spaces particularly. I think such an example would be ICOYACA, where they are taken upon as co-creators of these policies that are obviously meant to be working for them. I think UNDP also champions regional ecosystems to promote collaboration overall with its convening role, you know, and its presence within the continent. So I think through our programs like Timbuktu that I had referred to earlier on, the various trade fairs that we have, for example, Biashara Africa Business Forum convened by the AfCFTA Secretariat, are platforms that can be used for knowledge exchange and transfer, you know, where youth co-creators can create solutions, and also Youth Connect Africa, the biggest youth conference on the continent, where youth can come together and build Pan-African business models that fosters solidarity across borders. Ultimately, I believe scaling youth-led initiatives is not about just growing the business. It is essentially also about driving structural transformation, right? It means creating jobs, closing gender gaps, and building resilient, building resilient youth-powered economies. Scaling should not be measured not only by numbers, you know, but by the extent to which the young people can shape and benefit from Africa's development journey. So because youth are set to trade across borders, they need to exchange more than just goods. I think we need to come to a point where we're able to exchange our ideas, exchange how we build communities, and accelerate the dream of a united and prosperous Africa. And I think with the work that has been done with partners through UNDP and Youth Connect Africa, we also have something called the Youth Connect Africa Export Accelerator Program that already identifies youth who are exporting within their national markets or already trading regionally and beyond, and saying, how can we then assist them with tailored solutions and capacity building in order for them to accelerate what they already are doing. So it's to amplify what they're doing and not necessarily present something different to them. So I think for me, African integration means to build a continent where opportunities, where resources and ideas flow freely, so that every young African, regardless of their geography, has a chance to participate in and the shaping of our development journey. Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Wow. That was an exciting presentation from Nozepo. Sorry for pronouncing your name wrong. Nozepo, thank you so much for that presentation. Definitely. We need Africa mentorship and also platforms that can really unite African youths, regardless of their geographical borders. Allow me now to call Ms. Ega to just proceed with the session. Thank you so much. Ms. Ega, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you, Joseph. And thank you so much to all our attendees. Please keep on bringing in the questions for our lovely speakers. And thank you so much for our speakers for your wonderful answers. I will handle the next part of the questions. I have a question for Rodrigo Kunde. What are the biggest obstacles to free movement of people and goods across Africa?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're hearing me well.
Hi, Rodrigo.
Yes, can you get me? Do you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So, to answer your question, so I prefer not. Okay, thank you. So the biggest obstacles to free movement of people and goods across Africa are, we can split it in two parts. First, we can talk of the obstacles to free movement of people. And first of all, I could say that the obstacles are barriers, removal, like the obstacles are tariff and not tarifal barriers. We have in our countries, customers, we always talk about. Do you get me? Hello, do you get me?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I can hear you. Yes, you can continue.
Okay, I prefer my camera to be off, please.
No problem.
Because I'm connected with my phone. Yes. As I'm saying, we all in our sub-regional, institutions, we always talk about free movement of people and goods, but the reality is something else. When I've recently tried to go from Lome to Lagos, it was really difficult because from the Benin, Nigeria border to Lagos, we had like around 50 checkpoints of soldiers and customers. So this kind of things are not, this kind of things can encourage people to go through different countries in Africa. And this is the first barrier that we are going through. And there is no real political commitment. Politicals say what they say, but the reality is something else. If you can take the example of airplanes, when you want to fly from an African city to another one, the flying costs are just stunning. They are just too big. If you want to compare from, like, you want to go from Abidjan to Lagos, just today I tried to check the airplanes from my country, from Lome to Abuja, and the cost is around $1,000. But for the same distance in other continents, the price are very, very, very low. Maybe you can fly for less than 200 US dollars. So these different issues are very big things that do not allow us to be very free for our movements in the continent. And if we are not free, if the movement of people is not free, the movement of goods cannot be free. So now if we want to talk about the movement of goods, there are procedures, there are custom barriers. You have to pay a lot if you want to go even from Togo to Burkina Faso, or even from Ghana to Cote d'Ivoire. If you want to go there and sell something, you have to pay. You have to pay taxes. You have to pay custom taxes, and these taxes are not easy to assume. So these are the barriers that we are facing in our country. Apart from that, there are no enough roads in our countries. We know that recently in Senegal and in Nigeria, I think there are trains. You can find railways for trains, but if you want to go from Lagos to Abidjan, for example, there is no train. You are obliged to take the road or to take the plane. If you want to take the plane, you have to pay. You will be obliged to pay a big amount of money. And if you want to take the road, you spend like at least 2 days to go from Abidjan to Lagos. But if there was a high-speed train, for example, you could just go through this distance for maybe just 4 or 5 hours. So there are a lot of job to do for us, for our governments, to bring this gap and create more connections, more road connections, more railways connections, more speed train connections within our countries. And they also have to work on plain coasts, like the cost of airplanes, as I said before, in Africa are very, very high. And if I have to give some numbers, 18% of the global population of Africa represents 18% of the global population of the world, but it generates only 2 to 3% of the global air traffic. And these are due to different problems, like the fuel costs are very high on the continent, but there are also taxes that planes and airway companies have to pay in order to fly across some countries. Navigation charges are higher in Africa, maintenance, insurance costs are higher in Africa. And all these things are barriers that lead to low profitability for companies, and then the population have to pay far more if they want to fly. And it finally becomes a vicious cycle, because how do I call that? Because the plane tickets are too high for the population, so people don't want to fly. And as people are not flying, companies do not get enough money, and the vicious circle is still being. So if I could say something about the solutions of that problems, I think our countries have to really sit and talk with sincerity about the problems, understand that is a real issue, is a big issue, and that they could find solutions if they decide to work hands in hands. They have to think of the youth, they have to think of even the African Common Free Trade Area cannot be very operational if there is no more facility for people to move from a country to another country. If there is no more facility for entrepreneurs to move their goods from any country to another country without having to pay big charges for custom or other taxes. So that's my point. That's what I had to say about the question concerning the obstacles of the free movement of people and goods in Africa. Thank you. I'm open to questions if there are.
Thank you so much, Rodrigo, for your answer. And yes, I agree. Flights are very expensive, like really expensive, and it's not easy for one person to actually just afford them. So in alternative, it does affect the flow of goods. So I thank you so much for those powerful points. I will move on to Elidora Matubanzila. I have a question for you. What policy shifts are needed to ensure SMMEs and informal businesses to benefit from AfCFTA?
Okay, thank you very much, Ega. So good afternoon and good evening again. Thank you for the excellent question. So I will be speaking from the standpoint of the Office for Africa within the International Trade Center. So what we do is we support SMEs in developing countries, and for this program is for African countries. So we work with national governments, we work with the AfCFTA Secretariat, the AUC as well. So I'll be giving recommendations based on the experience that we have from the challenging and real-time impact on ground. So I would focus on three main points for this question, because of course we do a lot, but we can't talk about everything today. So the first policy shift I would say would be needed would be to have a formal recognition and economic integration of informal businesses. So on our continent, despite the fact that 85% of jobs are created by SMEs, they still are very much marginalized. It also represents 95% of women within this informal business as well. So it's very important that we acknowledge that they've been mostly, they are kept out of trade supports, also access to finance. I heard a few people speak about that. And then, often at times also are, sidelined from the national strategies of the AfCFTA, for instance. So it is good that, we have the protocol on women and youth. That is a good start for a policy shift. However, now, in implementing it, it needs to be done on the government level, where I also heard about that earlier. My colleague from UNDP, I think she mentioned simplifying trade regimes and customs procedures. So it would be the same recommendation there. So for example, what ITC does in that sense, so we have a private sector mapping that we have carried out, where we work with business support organizations to basically analyze and identify, the profiles and the competitive needs of SMEs if they want to grow on the continent. So that would be the first recommendation. The second one would be in terms of market access, how do we account for scale and capacity constraints for the SMEs? So many of the small businesses, especially if you take the context of the AfCFTA, they are not able to meet the standards or the requirements of the AfCFTA because it's going to require them to meet, rules of origin certificates and production certifications, SPS compliance, and so on. It's not because of lack of interest. Far from it. It's really because the policy frameworks did not accommodate them for them to scale and at the development stage. So the policy response in that case would be to introduce graduated compliance pathways. That means basically ensuring that they have access to, standards and compliance at every stage of their development, as opposed to just having one, and work from a bottom-up, methodology. And then also having a system of sort of establishing product upgrading incentives. So the more you're meeting requirements, the more you get incentives from your national, your government, basically. And then also the third step with that would be to build value chain integration programs for these priority sectors. So once again, I mentioned the priority sectors that we've mapped out, but when we are building these programs, we ensure for ITC, for example, if an SME wants to work with ITC, they firstly have to be in the country that has a program allocated to that. And then we mostly also prioritize value chains because we want to make sure we build sustainable businesses, or we help businesses stay relevant for a very long time. So we have launched, we recently launched a program called the Africa Trade Competitiveness and Market Access Program. It is funded by the EU and being implemented by UNIDO and ITC. So we've launched so far in ECOWAS and the SADC region. So what ATCMA ultimately is supposed to do, it is supposed to boost industrialization of, the continent, but also open market access and then ensure competitiveness. So how this will be done is basically ITC, we have identified 94 value chains that are high potential. I think I mentioned that earlier. So we would be helping the SMEs through the RECs. So the 5 RECs of the continent, as we know, the RECs are, in case you don't know what RECs are, so the regional economic communities, they are the building blocks of the AfCFTA. So we are going to, build on their knowledge of the continent to make sure that we involve these SMEs in the value chains, but also make sure that they meet international standards that would help them grow. And then, of course, because ATCMA is funded by the EU, it is going to build intra-Africa trade, but it's also going to help them be able to export beyond, Africa as well. When it comes to the third shift policy we are proposing, it would be trade governance, making sure that we include small businesses and informal business voices as well. So I think I've heard a few colleagues as well mentioning how the youth should be included and all of that. It's the same with the SMEs, really. It's not just about, making sure there is like an ecosystem and there's a policy, there's a protocol. They have to be actively engaged and involved, right? So we need to make sure that there's more representation at the national level and at the continental level as well. The policy response in that case, of course, if there could be a way to involve them in the decision-making room, we understand that it's not necessarily possible, but right now we've shifted from, negotiations with the AfCFTA, for example, and all these, these protocols have been adopted. Once again, just reminding that since we are in implementation phase, it's really about making sure that the policies that have been created are actually going to have an impact with the beneficiaries, which are the SMEs, right? So I also heard earlier, just like you were saying earlier, I think it was my colleague from UNDP, when you speak later, it feels like you're repeating what other people have said. But you mentioned Biashara Africa, which is one of the, sort of the ultimate, trade forum from the AfCFTA, and also Intra-Africa Trade Fair, which is organized by Afreximbank. So what we do in that sense is we try to sponsor SMEs that we work with as ITC, so they're able to come on these platforms and then, be a part of the public and private sector conversations, because we hope that after the governments go back home, the idea is they've heard the challenges on the ground, they've sort of interacted also with these businesses, and we'll go back with a take home to say, okay, this is what is really going on for these guys. Let's make sure we create policies that are going to be making sure they thrive in this environment. And so those are, the recommendations that we would have. Also, in terms of making sure their voices are heard, we have business support organizations that we work with. So even if it means that, channeling this feedback from the SMEs through them to make sure that they speak with the governments, that's also something that would really be helpful. But I think making it more official and, more institutionalized would be helpful for the long term. So just to conclude, AfCFTA, as I've been saying, even in my first intervention, it cannot succeed alone. We all have to be taking part of it. We just have to make sure that historically those who have been marginalized, so the youth and women, which is very, also good that we have a protocol addressing that issue. We need to make sure that they are fully included and we are empowering them to really benefit from the agreements, that they are not an afterthought. They are really a strategic pillar. And of course, as ITC, we are always working with our partners, on the continent to make sure that SMEs are being, heard and they're being, viewed as well. They've been seen, and hopefully we are growing. So just before I sign out, there's just one very proud moment that we've had last week. So we have one of our SMEs from Ghana. There's a project called Sankofa, which is on cocoa. As you know, Ghana is one of the biggest cocoa producers in the world. And so we had started working with this company, and eventually they have been able to, work on their standards, their packaging, labeling, and so on. And now they've officially signed with Woolworth in South Africa, which is the biggest, supermarket, I'd say, distribution for them. So they're officially going to be selling in South Africa. So yes, these are the kind of things that ITC tries to do to hopefully make sure that we have sustainable businesses, across time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elidora, for your beautiful answer. And yes, I agree with you that SMMEs should not be sidelined. They are very much important, just like the big companies that we know, and that we cannot do it alone. Everybody has to play a part to make this AfCFTA grow big and grow strong. Thank you so much. I have a question for Vincent Baidu. Why is youth participation critical in shaping the future of African integration? Vincent Baidu?
Yes, please. Okay.
Yes.
So before I proceed with the question, I would like to emphasize more on my leadership role. So actually, before addressing issues to the authorities of our institution as learner leaders, getting individual concerns from the learners is very vital. So we create a room or also an environment, an inclusive environment for all the learners to share their thoughts on their challenges and also concerns in order for us to champion it to the top. So what we do is we build up initiatives that will help us to get individual feedbacks from individual sectors of the institution in order for us to run with it. So I think we brought up an initiative called the Talk to Us initiative, which help us to get the necessary feedbacks and for us to feed on it and also to escalate it to the authorities to get the necessary answers to their solutions. So
Vincent, we can't hear you this side.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes,
Yeah,
we can hear you now.
Yeah, so all that they've said, all are good. They are all critical points and better to deal with. I think the best option to go with is youth involvement and engagement, and also creating a space for the youth to get involved in decision makings, policy makings, and also getting the opportunity to reach out to individual investors and also policy makers in order for them to get involved in such policies. So, by the way, it's very vital for the youth to be involved in shaping Africa and also bringing up better policies in order to shape Africa. So in all, youth involvement and engagement is very vital. So we have to emphasize on that in order to make us create a better Africa for all. Thank you. Hello? Hello?
You can hear me?
Yes, audible. You're audible.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that we will never be able to achieve any goal without a true political will, without breaking free from the prevailing stereotypical means, and without putting an end to foreign interference. To this day, no decision can be made without the approval of the West. Parliamentary deliberations and ratification of decisions take place in the presence of embassy representative, and I know exactly what I am saying. Although we belong to the same continent, do young people, truly know the different African countries? Is there any real ease or strategy, whether in tourism or logistics, similar to what exists in Europe, that would allow them to visit and discover these countries known for their natural beauty and cultural diversity? Can young people really move freely to study, work, or travel without facing thousands of obstacles? Honestly, despite being Africans, there is still a classic stereotypical perception held by some North African youth towards those from Central or Southern Africa. It's therefore time to adapt a new and firm policy. That's why a generation that fears to pass the torch betrays the future. Africa stands at the turning point. Yet Africa is the youngest continent on earth. Why are our youth not at the center of political, economic, and institutional leaderships? Why are we still tied to outdated models inherited from colonization that stifle our creative energy? Breaking free from outdated structures. It's time to break away from everything that delays our rise. Dependency on imported models that don't reflect our realities. The exclusion of youth from decision-making spaces. The illusion that age alone brings legitimacy. Africa, a land of riches, not submission. Africa is powerful. Strategic resources, gold, uranium, cobalt, lithium, oil, a dynamic youth, enormous agriculture and energy potential. Yet it remains vulnerable to external control. We say no to external submission, no to exporting raw materials without transformation, no to externally imposed pessimism. The tragedy of forced migration and human exploitation. Youth flee poverty only to fall into suffering. They become victims of human trafficking networks, organ trafficking. So this will only stop when youth are truly at the heart of leadership. Etiquette and protocol are powerful tools too. To stand firm in international arenas, to represent Africa with dignity, and here I address this message to politicians and business leaders. They must pay close attention to their behavior and to protocol standards as they represent themselves and their countries on the global stage, to influence with elegance rather than arrogance. So conclusion, power that is harded fades, power that is shared multiples. Passing the torch is not giving up, it's resisting, preparing, voiding. The Africa of tomorrow starts today. By its youth, with its youth, for its youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that presentation. Definitely, we've been given insights, deep insights and knowledge pertaining to how we can integrate Africa continental free trade area. At this point in time, I'll give an opportunity for the audience to engage the speakers through question and answer, I suppose, through question and answer. And let me just remind the audience that you are free to write your name, country, and question in the chat, even as we pick you to speak. Feel free to unmute your mic once you are mentioned. So I saw a question coming from Mark Sentongo. Are you still there? Mark Sentongo, there was a question you posted in the chat. Are you there to unmute your mic and ask the speakers? Okay, it seems Mark is having network challenge. Another person who posted the question was Arnold. Ekanga. Arnold Ekanga, are you still there? You can unmute your mic and just engage our speakers.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, you can go ahead, please unmute your mic and ask your question, please.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to know if please the different speakers can provide us with the useful links. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing is, after this meeting, what are we supposed to do? How do we move? I mean, is there something planned? How do we engage in all those initiatives? Thank you.
Sure, thank you so much. Can we have one of our speakers definitely to respond to the question that has been asked? Actually, the question I suppose was posed to Ms. Elidola, I think. If we can have ATC SME community link, the audience is asking, and the way forward after this webinar. Elidola, are you still in the meeting to respond to that question, please? Okay, can we have okay. Can we have maybe Ms. Noriman Manobi to respond the way forward after this webinar?
You hear me?
Yes, we can get you.
The question, please.
Okay. Anot Ekenga is asking the way forward after this webinar. What's the way forward after this webinar?
Excuse me, I didn't understand. Can you repeat, please?
So the audience is asking, say, of the knowledge that have been shared in this webinar, what's now the way forward? What should be done next after receiving this knowledge you've just shared in this webinar?
The question is not clear. Excuse me.
Okay, let me paraphrase. So the speaker...
Joseph, if I may, can I give an initial answer, and maybe that clarifies things a little bit, if you don't mind.
So Africa can't move forward if it remains fragmented, divided, and dependent on unilateral partnerships. We urgently need to establish strong bilateral and continental South-South cooperation rooted in our shared interests. Our nations must work together, exchange skills, strengthen economic and cultural diplomacy, and speak with one voice in global negotiations. Excuse me. Why does the aging European continent, despite its demographic decline, continue to wield such global influence and stability? because it has understood the power of monetary unity, free movement, and common integration strategy. Meanwhile, we, young, vibrant Africa, still suffer from fragmented currencies controlled from the outside, rigid borders between brothers nations, absurd rivalries, and scattered diplomacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that response. This question is posed to Elidora. If you are still there, the audience is asking that you can post the link where they can find the link to join the
link to join. Okay, I think I responded to Victor. So there is no specific link to join. There's nothing, an official SME community for ITC. However, how we work is we work through country programs. So it would depend on the program, the partner, on the project as well. And it's usually going to be focused on specific sectors. So I was saying to Victor that you would have to keep an eye on these projects that come from time to time. Sometimes we do call to applications, for example. So I think I would say for now, you can follow, ITC activities on our social media, for example. Recently, I think we're having a few call to application for some of the youth programs in country. So you need to check depending on your country and depending also on the sector that ITC will be providing support for. But all in all, we have our online platforms that are accessible. The trainings as well are online. I think Ega was saying that she has had a few. So yes, that is what I would, recommend or suggest.
Okay, thank you so much for the response. Can I have David Amachundi just to unmute the mic and ask the question to the speaker? David, are you still there? David Amachundi. So David Amachundi's question was, how best can African countries maximize current engagement in the Guided Trade Initiative, GIT, of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area?
Okay, so David, the Guided Trade Initiative has been closed. So, it was a pilot to sort of guide member states and show the private sector that is how you can trade under the AfCFTA. So now, practically what you are supposed to do is maybe you have to just, see with your colleagues at the ministry and then also work through the BSOs, hopefully. And then just, this is actual trading now. We don't go through GTI anymore. So now we are encouraging, or the member states are encouraged to just make sure they initiate trading, right? Because I was mentioning earlier, these national implementation committees, they are from your unit at the Ministry of Trade. So they should be the ones, sort of directing that. But this question should be addressed to the AfCFTA Secretariat because they are the ones coordinating that. But the private sector engagement unit is the one taking care of, SME development now. Yeah. I hope that helps. I hope it answers your question.
Thank you so much for the response. Can I have Ms. Ega Nkone please to take up the session?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joseph. Let me look at the chat. So my internet buffered a little bit, so I only have the latest questions. We have a question from David Amachundi. He is a trade negotiator from Nigeria. He's asking, how best can African countries maximize current engagement in the Guided Trade Initiative, GTI, of the AfCFTA?
Sorry, does it mean I was muted the whole time? Because I thought I had responded.
Oh, no,
Okay.
you weren't. We heard you. I think she just missed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe, Edgar, you were offline when I responded?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, then I
Okay.
did respond to David. Hopefully, if it helps, but the best way would also be for him to get closer to the secretariat colleagues so that they can also, assist in that.
Okay, thank you. We also have a question from Frank. He's asking, he is from Cameroon, sorry. How can we benefit from the opportunity for the SME community?
Okay, so I guess it's addressed to me.
Yes,
Is it addressed to me? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Then I think it would be the same response as I gave previously to, I think it was Victor. So we don't have a specific community for SMEs. Like I said, at ITC, we work with projects and programs in country. So depending on the project, on the program, depending on the partner, and the sector as well that, we are prioritizing in that specific country, that is how, it's basically run. So in Cameroon at the moment, I'm not sure what exactly is the project that you could be involved in. However, like I was saying to Victor, you could follow our pages or, follow our activities, and then you would know exactly what is going on. We often do call to applications as well. So you would know in that part. But then, what I would also, suggest to you would be that you get close to your Ministry of Trade, you get close to the business support organizations, because most of the time we work through them as well. And they have, knowledge about the workshops we'll be doing and things like that. We do online trainings as well. We have a website. You can do, e-learning programs and so on and so forth. But ultimately, the ATCMA program that I mentioned earlier, there's an ECAS component. So Cameroon will be part of that. So yes, the best option or the best solution right now would be to follow what we are doing, and you would know. But I think we have a project, PAPER, in Central Africa, but I'm not sure when it's going to be involved fully with Cameroon. So, the best would be for you to check that. That is not necessarily with One Trade Africa. It's with the colleagues working on PAPER for Central Africa. So yes, please follow the ITC updates for that. It's the best way to know what's going on with the project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eldora. I have another question for you. How can Zambia tap into the EU funding opportunities in a way that mirrors the level of benefit currently being experienced by ECOWAS, as we had an ongoing project?
Okay, when you're saying being mirrored by ECOWAS, what exactly does that mean? Are you talking about the program that I mentioned and you want to know how it will work in Zambia, or I'm not really, if that question could be clarified.
Okay, so this question was from Mercy Piri. So she is listening, so she will respond to your question as well. Moving on, we have a question for Nosipo. How is the AfCFTA Secretariat collaborating with the UNDP Africa to engage grassroots youth to participate in the AfCFTA protocol? The question continues to say, we have a lot of brilliant continental conversations that end up in the continental level. Grassroots youth are usually not included in the implementation process. This question is from Victor Akpan from Nigeria.
Thank you very much for the question, Victor. So just to answer your question, UNDP currently has a program running, partnering with MasterCard Foundation. ITC also within 5 countries in Southern Africa, targeting grassroots entrepreneurs, particularly women and youth, ensuring that they get the support in terms of like building up their businesses that are existing, be it with financial assistance and support, and how to get their businesses to a point where they actually are able to secure funding, training them on access to e-platforms or e-commerce platforms that they can utilize to scale up their businesses. And I think also ensuring that the solutions that they present to them are appropriate, because we tend to have these grand ideas that we have, but not necessarily tailored and appropriate to the people that we're building it for, targeting it for. So building from a trader's lens that is at grassroots, and also whether we like it or not, reiterating the importance of formalizing in order for them to partake in national and regional trade, which is the goal, and beyond later on. So I hope that answers your first question. I mean, obviously, this is in consultation with the AfCFTA Secretariat, ensuring that we're able to combine these countries as a case study to actually make also regional communities realize the benefit of organizing within themselves to enable the impact and scalability of implementation of the AfCFTA. I don't quite remember your second question. Are you able to remind me, Iga, what the second question was?
Oh, there was no second question, so you only had
Okay.
one question. Yes.
Okay, sure.
You just had a
Brilliant.
statement saying that we have a lot of brilliant continental conversations that end up on the continental level. Grassroots youth are usually
Okay.
not included in the implementation process. Yes.
Okay, sure. And just to add on to that, I think UNDP is also trying to change their approach in how they build youth portfolios in consultation with other youth organizations in the continent. I think ICOYACA was also part of that, ensuring that we're not building these solutions for ourselves because we're not the ones that utilize them at the end, So when we really speak of youth agency, are we really giving up the power that may be in order for the youth to come in and actually make the relevant decisions and actually have an allocated seat at the table, not when it's convenient, to have the numbers and the quotas, but actually making sure that from the build and the inception of the ideas, we're building from their lens and not what we think their needs are, but rather ascertaining what the real needs are and the challenges that they are facing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nosipho, for your wonderful answer. I have a question from Luchu. Sorry, I'm sorry if I'm going to mispronounce your name. My apologies. Hi, my name is Luchu Lumako Mawisa from South Africa. She says, or he says, given that the success of the AfCFTA hinges not only on trade policies, but also on the harmonization of education systems, digital infrastructure, and financial inclusion across very diverse economies, what concrete steps can be taken to ensure that the youth, especially those in underserviced rural or informal sectors, are not left behind in the regional integration push? And lastly, how is it that we may push to integrate Africa in a fashion that is not colonial in its design? And by that, I make reference to top Cecil John Rhodes and his dream of Cape to Cairo.
Is that question directed to anyone particularly?
Yeah.
Not really. I think maybe Elodora, Nosipho.
Sure. I can take a stab and then Elodora, please do feel free to come in, right? I think the free trade agreement is a legal document that is then adopted, ratified and domesticated within the respective countries. We know we want a free Africa for all and movement, but I also think it's important for us to always keep at the back of our minds that countries are sovereign and that there's a need for buy-in and political will, and collaboration and, like I said, a system-based approach within the countries themselves to harmonize and make the agreement work for itself first before we can go beyond. So it's very hard to say from a regional lens, or rather even impose in things like the education systems, because they already set policies within the respective countries in itself. Do I agree with the statement? Sure. I think a lot of work needs to be done from the foundational aspect, be it in the education. But I think that will take a lot of time and a lot of work from the lens of where we sit and the work that we do and what we can do, right? Because the reality is also we need to ensure that the collaboration is such that we take along private and public sector partnerships to operationalize what we want to see manifest being the success of the AfCFTA in the future. So to answer your question, we need more buy-in, we need more political will, we need more cohesive systems and people on the ground, be it the ones that hold the willpower of the institutions or the government organizations or the people within the government organizations, to also come to the table and make this work in order for it to work holistically. So I hope that answers a fraction of your question, because I think it's quite an extensive question. I'll hand it over to Elidora.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think you've pretty much said it all. But what I would say, so coming from a former AfCFTA Secretariat staff standpoint, indeed, it's very challenging for the Secretariat to do this on their own. Once again, implementation is not, protocols have been adopted now, so implementation is what is on the table as it stands. And so the drivers of the agreement are going to take center stage. The member states are the ones who are supposed to push that in the national agenda to make sure that the private sector is going to lead and drive the AfCFTA. So I agree with my colleague when she said that, it's a political will. Because that, I think we have the political will. It's safe to say that, the AfCFTA is very much, one is the priority right now on the continent, especially with everything that's going on with, the US and the tariff cuts and all of that. It is a priority. It is the fastest ratified agreement as well. So it really shows that it's something that the government really wants to happen. However, between signing the agreements, ratifying and then actually making sure that it's going ahead is where the different stages of the countries would come. I think you just said it, that it's very fragmented. That's a challenge. It's a very fragmented continent. So just like you said as well, I'm sorry, I don't want to, mispronounce your name. Is it Nozipo? Okay. We're from the same family, so it's okay. Yes, just like she said, it's going to take a very, very long time. The legacy of the AfCFTA is not today, is not tomorrow. So what I would say to add on to what she said is, as young people, it's, it relies also on us to make sure that it works. AfCFTA is every single one of us. I always like to say that the biggest trade barrier is in our minds, because so far as we don't trust the products from other countries or even the ones from our own countries, if we don't patronize our own goods, nobody else is going to patronize it. So it has to start from home, right? So that is the first thing. Now, once again, I'm going to join Zipo on that. The national agenda and national priorities, we will not be able to force them to supersede continental priorities. So they have to make sure, once again, that they include them in that. And then education is definitely, the base of everything. So if today President Chakwera in Malawi decides to add AfCFTA to the curriculum and say we should be able to start that from, high school, that's fine. That would be good for us, but we cannot force them to do it. And that's something that I think Secretariat, it's a bit difficult for them. I mean, it's the Secretariat is a platform for engagement for the member states. They do not implement the agreement, right? So they can only do so much. So I think when we talk about the AfCFTA, we have to give grace, because there's a lot of work being done. Being a former staff, I know exactly what the work is like. It's a lot of work, and I think they're doing an amazing job. And so, yes, just to finish, the work is a big one ahead, but then the member states are supposed to drive the implementation with their national priorities. So you as a young person and everybody on this call, the little you can do to, drive the AfCFTA or influence policies in your country, please do that. And I think it would be fair to say we are thanking YALDA and ICOYACA for doing things like this, because we are giving ourselves the platforms to educate our colleagues and our friends and brothers and sisters that it's really up to all of us to make it work. So yeah, that's what I would say. Thank you. I hope it helps.
Thank you so much, Elodora and Nosipio, for that. I will take one last question and we shall conclude. We have a question from, sorry. Okay, we have a question from Victor again. He says, there are engagement barriers between the ministries of trade and young people in different states. How is the ITC facilitating seamless engagement processes that can enhance youth participation in co-creating and implementing youth-focused initiatives that can foster innovation and trade? Elodora, we can't hear you. Your mic is muted.
Yes, I believe I'm okay now. You can hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can.
Okay. So Victor, thank you for your question. I thought I was going to be off the hook for a few questions, but it's okay. So how is ITC facilitating seamless engagement process that can enhance youth participation? Okay, so ITC has several layers, thankfully. So the Office for Africa and One Trade Africa, where my team is, we deal with continental, right? So there's a broader work on the continent. However, when it comes to the youth specifically, as an organization, we have a department called YAY, or let's say a program called YAY, the YAY community. So there's a community that's built just for the youth community and the youth engagement, SME, and so on. So those are the initiatives that the YAY community works on. So once again, what I would say is, because I wouldn't know the details of everything that YAY is doing, I would say that you follow the activities of the YAY community. And yes, so YAY stands for Youth Entrepreneurship. Yes, they're very strong. And so I think it would be best to, get closer to what they do and get more familiar with that. I'm sure they work with, government bodies and of course, the business support organizations to make sure that youth is fully included. However, on our side, as the Office for Africa, we have programs. I think even with YALDA, we did do we had a boot camp. So what we also do is, as much as we can, when there are big events like Intra-Africa Trade or Biashara, we have workshops and things like that. We try to have like not a community, but sort of have an ecosystem where we cater for the youth and for women, like I was saying earlier. But on the policy side, as you know, we are not policy making people. We are just trying to make sure that the policies actually work for you guys, right? Then ITC has several other initiatives. I mean, I don't know if you guys know about She Trades, that is also focused on women solely. So once again, I'm just going to go back to what I said earlier. Just follow our activities and then it will make it easier for you to know where you stand and how you can be fully involved. With ITC. I hope it answers your question.
Thank you so much, Elodora, for your wonderful answer. We unfortunately have to conclude our lovely webinar. And at this point, I will hand it over to my co-moderator, Joseph.
Sorry, Ega or Joseph, I think Messi's question wasn't addressed because I'm trying to still figure out what she meant.
Okay.
She was saying that in comparison to Zambia, and I was asking her in comparison to what exactly. I do not know. I don't know if she'll be able to get the flow. Maybe that would be easier to just hear her and then just, cut it out so that we've addressed everything, if it's possible, of course, because I just want to make sure she has it, right.
Okay. I think it'll be best if we call her in. Mercy.
Yes, please.
Yes, okay. Can you please repeat your question for Miss Alodora?
Well, I was just trying to find out, since you did mention that the COCO project was working under ICT for Ghana and the new funding with the European Union. So I was asking, is there a possibility of a likelihood for a Zambia similar way project, since we already had, I quite understand what she's talking about when she talks about the SMEs in Ghana and all that, because I haven't taken programs with ICT, International Trade Center Zambia, on similar projects, but on a different scheme, not the COCO project, but in a different agriculture project. So I was looking for any possibilities.
Okay, thank you for that. So it's good you gave that precision, because in your question you didn't mention the Cocoa project or anything, so it was a bit confusing. So I think you're confirming what I've been saying, that the country projects will depend on the program and on the priority value chain that we are, working on in the country.
Absolutely.
So for Zambia, so for Zambia, of course, Ghana, like I said, because of cocoa, it was relevant, and that's the priority that the Sankofa project was working on. Is a project with the Swiss government. So of course, that is a different priority. The funding for Zambia might be something else. What I do know is the HCMA project, which is the EU funded project, has a static component, which is what they launched last week, Monday. So we are now doing the mapping of the value chains with UNIDO. So once we know the value chains that the SADC region would be focusing on, we will be able, or you'll be able to know, where you can probably jump on to be part of the program, or, if you can part of a workshop or a cohort or whatever we'll be doing. It's still at the, initial phases in terms of implementation. So I'm just going to repeat myself. Just please follow us to know exactly what your country is doing and where and how. That's the best way, because there's a lot of programs and projects going on at ITC. I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what Zambia is doing and with who. There's a lot of funding partners and a lot of projects. So yeah, I hope that is clear for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elidora, for answering Missy's question. We have, unfortunately, come to the end of our wonderful yet insightful webinar. And I would really love to thank, first and foremost, our speakers for making time out of their busy schedules to be with us tonight, to listen to them and to give us great insights. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the attendees. This is not possible without you guys anyway. We thank you so much for showing interest in AfCFTA as a whole, and just taking time to also listen to our wonderful speakers. I would also like to urge us all to connect on social media platforms, on LinkedIn, right? So that you may talk to Alodora if you need more information, Nosipo as well. Talk to Ala Arafat as well if you need more information. So kindly, let's connect and let's build a greater network. Kindly also follow our social media platforms of YALDA. They are available on the screen. The YALDA social media platforms, kindly follow them for any news, updates, just to stay updated as a youth participant, or if you have a business and you want it to grow, just follow YALDA. We also have ICOYACA. Kindly follow us as well for any news and for more information. And for many more programs like this, kindly follow ICOYACA and YALDA. I would like to thank you all for participating in this lovely webinar, and I'd love to see you guys all again. Thank you. Good night, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Bye.
lovely evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.